So, Sophie, today we are going to tell a tale of two Fife property markets and the need for a realistic pricing strategy. So, Fife homeowners, are you ready for the new property market reality? QVT. So this ties in really quite nicely with what we discussed last week on the midweek show about the roller coaster the market's been on since 2019 up until year to date 2024. So, I mean, the Fife property market has undergone really significant changes over the past few years. As we've depicted today, and we've got a couple of graphs which are quite good, and we're going to obviously show them as we go through. And these visualizations really capture the trends and the number of properties available for sale and the number of properties actually sold subject to conclusion of missives. So, and as I say, that's from January 2019 up to July this year, 2024. And I think what we'll notice is by analysing these graphs today, we could really gain a much better insight into the evolving dynamics of the local property market and the necessity for Fife homeowners to really adopt a realistic pricing strategy, and especially given the increase in available homes since the mid 2022 period. Realistic pricing strategy is really important, I think, from the outset, right from the get-go. But obviously, sometimes things change, and we were just talking off camera there about obviously price realignment and how people have the misconceptions around that as well, Sophie. And people think, oh, it's not a price reduction. You shouldn't refer to that as a price realignment, and there's a reason for that. I think you were going to give us a quick example just of the benefits of price realignment.
Oh, absolutely. It's something we'll always educate. And obviously, it's always great to have an example because as much as we can tell you these words and say that, we need something to back it up with. But a great example, and this is a property that's concluded. The new people are in their home, loving it, I'm sure. But Blackety side, it's just outside Leven for those that don't know. So as you kind of head in from Leven to Cooper, it's a gorgeous property just there. That was originally on the market for a really high price point. We weren't getting the activities with obviously the sellers at the time, and it actually got realigned down, and it seemed drastic at the time, but it got realigned down to 595. So that took a big chunk off the original offers overprice. Went down to the 595, and we said, trust us, this is what we do. It's to just hit that new audience, just to capture a new market, to then push that price back up. And it then ended up, it was buyers and they're from out of the area, because as well, something that's touched on, and it was something that we were speaking about yesterday on a course, was it's not how long you've been on the market, it's also how long your buyer's been on the market. And that was another key part of this. So those people saw this property, they went and view it, and actually their offer ended up coming in at 685. So we had it on the market, realigned down to 595, but they accepted an offer at 685. So and that is proof in the pudding. You can go on Rightmove, you can go on Zoopla and check it out. They've ended up accepting that offer, and that's what it sold for. So that just shows you, it's not, obviously, we're not just telling you these things. Proof's in the pudding. We realigned all the way back up because as well, and another thing that we won't just take what it's on the market for, because the home report value is still there. That's what it was valued at. We just needed to hit that new audience, and it just shows you. And there's many examples like that, but that's one that really stands out for us, especially because it is in that higher price point, that bracket as well, where affordability is less, but it does just show you that it can be done. So that was a brilliant example.
Yeah, and I think, like you're saying, when you're in that higher price bracket as well, there is sometimes more a need to maybe price realign, but it's all for the greater good of the end result. And that's what and if you've got a good agent, they'll know how to do that correctly, just like you demonstrated there, Sophie. So thanks for that. That's a really good example. So let's take a little bit closer look at the Fife market dynamics in this period of 2019 to 2024. Now, I did say we've got a couple of graphs today, but this one's actually really good. Could you see that on your screen there, Sophie? Yeah, you can see that. Okay.
Yeah, we've got it.
So I'll just briefly explain this, and we'll refer to this graph as we go through, but I won't keep it on the screen the whole time. But you can see there, obviously, in the blue is properties for sale in Fife. The red line with the yellow outline is a number of sales agreed subject to conclusion of missives, okay? And that starts from January 19 and it runs right through to July 2024. Now, see at the beginning here, from January, at this first portion of the graph, from January 2019 to February 2020, you can see it's quite a normal market. The number of properties for sale in Fife remained relatively stable at an average of 1,068 homes. Now, when we talk about Fife, we refer to Fife as being in KY1 to KY12 and KY14 to 16. Okay. Now, this is a pre-COVID period, and it also showed a steady number of properties being sold each month. So you can see the blue remains relatively the same, and the red line kind of stays relatively the same as well. And it really just kind of demonstrates a bit of like a balanced market. So a steady number of properties being sold each month with an average of about 269 home sales there. And that really does indicate a balanced market where the supply of homes was more or less matched by the buyer demand. And then obviously the graph changes. Now I'm going to take it off because obviously you can see where it changes there, and they both drop. So Sophie, you're going to take us through that because that obviously is COVID-19 pandemic time. So talk us through that.
So it underwent a noticeable shift, as you say, with the onset of the pandemic. So late March 2020, it obviously gripped the nation. It took over. That was our obviously sole interest at that time.
Yep.
The number of properties that sold in April and May of 2020 plummeted sharply. This
and that was that dip we've seen in the red line on the area.
It's just drastic, and obviously that was just due to the uncertainty, of course. The pandemic brought, just like with everything as well, it was obviously going to happen, but you can just see just how much of a nosedive it does take, with many potential buyers kind of holding off buying their home or moving, just with the uncertainty and obviously the financial aspect of it as well.
I'll just quickly show again, sorry. So yeah, so we come from this, obviously, like I said, at the beginning, they're quite a balanced market, and then it comes along, and then we hit, obviously, like you said, in March 2020, where it does the house sales and the properties for sale, obviously, both take a nosedive there in the pandemic, and then obviously then it leads through into, as we start to come out the other side of that as well, which you're going to move on to just now.
Yes, so then as you can see, obviously we nosedive down, but then you can see just how quick it peaks back up again, because the floodgates kind of open once the property market lockdown kind of lifted, May, June, kind of teetering into July, and that's where you see that it peak back up, because the number of properties coming to market in then June, July and August of 2020 then rose by 27.1% above kind of long-term average for that time of year. Yet the number of homes selling also rose. So not only did they go to market, and we saw that obviously the 27.1% rise, but then also what was selling, because we're able to get back into them again to actually do the viewings to get them sold. So not only were they coming to market, the ones that were maybe on the market just before obviously the pandemic started, we then could conduct viewings. People then were in the mindset of it, and then you see them selling as well. So you can see it does dive and then up again. In Fife, in the 20 months between May 2020 and December 2021, the average number of Fife homes selling was 296, so 296 per month. 1 month as well, we're just going to add a wee side note to that. 1 month, it even hit the head height of 451 homes sold subject to concluded missives. So obviously,
just before you keep going, that's a crazy figure. So we think. So let's go back to what I was talking about, a balanced market, and we were thereabouts. What did I say? 269 home sales, and then you're saying, do you know, the average at that peak period was 296, which is obviously a bit higher than that. But to hit the heights of 451 home sales at one point is extremely high when you look at what a balanced market was sitting at the 269. So that, I mean, it was an extraordinary time in the property market. If that kind of thing floats your boat, it was for me, and obviously for property professionals operating at that time, especially when you've come from a time way before that, to see something like the pandemic and then the hit after it. It was an exceptional time in the property market by all means.
Absolutely. The 20 months between May 2020, as we were saying, and December 2021. There you have the number of homes for sale steadily dropped throughout that period.
This is on the other side of this highs of like 451 homes.
You had that high, and then obviously, the number of homes for sale steadily dropped throughout that period to an all-time low of just 436 homes for sale in December 2021. But obviously, between May 2020 and December 2021, that's a long time. It's a long time, but as I say, it did then start to steadily drop, but still 436. It's not that drastically low, but it did kind of drop to that.
So the 436 for home sales in December 2021. So what stands out really during that period is that despite the reduced number of Fife properties for sale, the number of properties sold remained quite robust in that period. So like this surge in demand, despite a drop in available Fife homes, can kind of be attributed to the combination of maybe pent-up demand, and the government's intervention as well in the property market at that time. So, and mainly when I speak about the government's intervention, I mainly mean like the land and buildings tax transaction holiday, which they implemented, which really incentivized buyers to start moving quite quickly, and that's why we've seen those figures at that time. But then obviously, as things move on and the dust settled from 2021, and as we moved into the first half of 2022, the property market started to feel like it was kind of coming back to, like I say, that normal property market where we were at the beginning. No, I don't like the word normal, but that kind of balanced market. As the numbers of homes selling settled down and the general level of properties for sale also steadily begun to rise, and kind of back to that kind of balance and equilibrium kind of state where we were before the pandemic and then all the ups and downs. However, just as we returned from the summer holidays in 2022, the Fife property market was badly hit twice in a 12-month window. So tell us a little bit about that then, Sophie.
Yeah, and this is a side note, and you mentioned it at the beginning, if you didn't watch obviously our show last week, it'd be good to go back and watch that, because as you say, this carries on from that, and it goes into
it's quite good,
into a little bit more detail. So recommend watching that one, and then this one will add more context to it. But the first hit was the trust budget in late 2022, which we did go into more detail in the last show as well, which might be really informative. In the 5 months following that budget, the average number of Fife home sales dropped to an average of only 213 sales per month. Started to recover in spring 2023 as the home sales rose to average, and as always we say, we use the word average loosely, of 283 sales per month.
So that's getting back to where we were pre-pandemic and things, just there or thereabouts.
Around the 296 to then obviously your 283, but then you think we're okay, and then we get hit again when the, of course, increase in interest rates, dare we say it, and speak about it. Again, we did it in more detail in the last show.
We spoke a lot about the Bank of England base rates and the the trust budget, and it was a really good show. So if you didn't catch that last week's show, you'll catch it on our reruns, and it's on the YouTube channel and things as well. But to watch that and then watch this, it ties in really nicely.
Absolutely. But we then obviously did see the aftermath of the increase in interest rates, because it started to bite in the summer of 2023. As a result of that, the home sales in Fife dropped again to 259, so 259 sales per month in the summer months of 2023. So when you think about the numbers that have been going through our heads, you know, the 269, the 296, the 283, to then obviously be sitting about the 259 in the summer months of 2023, you can see obviously the decrease and how the trust budget, the interest rates did have that effect.
Yeah. That's just, I'm just going to share the graph again just for us to have a wee look. So yeah, you can see there at the beginning, the balance market area, you've got that dip as the pandemic and things hit, then you've got that surge afterwards, and then as we move along, you can see at that next dip, that's the trust budget and the interest rates and things as well, which takes us right along to as we begin the beginnings of 2024, which is the beginning of this year.
Yep.
And the number of Fife homes for sale really took a surge after January 2024. Since January 2024, the number of Fife homes selling has been at an average of 291 home sales per month. Yet, here is the fly in the ointment. So the number of homes for sale has steadily risen to around about 1,088 to be precise, in August 2024 alone. So this significant increase in supply could be due to a varying amount of factors. So, and that's including homeowners taking advantage of the high property prices, obviously people pushing for that higher price point, an increase in new builds, and we have seen that in the Fife area. We've got a lot of new builds coming up, the Glen Office area, and the old Tillis Russell site. There's a lot of new builds in there. Also across Cawdey, we've got Dunfermline. They've got new builds up in Garbridge. You've got the Eden Woods development. There is a lot of new builds as well. Indeed a growing number of properties that have failed to sell in the previous months being relisted as well. So that's probably all these contributing factors have caused this surge at the beginning of that year. So that then brings us on from obviously the stats and the statistics that have been displayed in that graph for us then to start looking at percentage proportions, and that's really Fife versus the greater UK trends basically. So Fife is in itself in comparison to the rest of the country basically.
So we have a graph for that, would you believe it?
We do have a graph for that, but before we pull that up, tell us a wee bit about what this graph then depicts, or kind of visualizes for us.
Okay, so the next graph that we'll show you, and hopefully it'll help you reference it a bit more. We've got the black background on it as well, so you can really highlight and you can see obviously the peaks and the lows.
I'll share it as you explain.
So this delves deeper into the dynamic by comparing the same set of numbers against each other and expressing them as percentage. So you can obviously see the percentage going up the left-hand side just there, and then obviously the timescale underneath. The red line being the UK property sold in the UK during the month, and then the yellow line, if it looks like yellow for you, being the Fife properties line. So then obviously we can see the differences or the similarities. So by doing that, we can analyze the proportion of monthly homes sold relative to the number of properties available. So this will give us a good insight, and obviously it'll then help us in terms of what kind of market has it been and continues to be. So as I said, yellow line.
So this graph here is showing the same figures but in a percentage amount. So so I should have been, sorry Sophie to interrupt, but so the yellow line there on the graph represents the percentage of Fife properties sold subject to conclusion of missives, which was the yeah, so in the last graph, it's the red line. So, and during the sold subject to conclusion missive during the month as a proportion of the home sales, okay, while the red line for interest shows the equivalent figure for the entire UK, okay.
Yeah.
So yellow line is Fife, and the red line is UK, and that's the property sold, okay. So yeah, so like so I was just trying to clarify that a wee bit. Probably
That's okay.
Okay. So what does that graph reveal to us then, as if it's a percentage, showing it as a percentage in comparison to us in the UK?
So it's quite telling information. So we'll start obviously throughout 2020 and early 2021.
Okay.
The proportion of homes sold in Fife, yellow line, spiked in the early to mid 50%, which you'll see again when we put the graph up. This aligns quite nicely with the earlier observation that despite fewer homes being available, a higher percentage of these homes were being snapped up by those eager buyers following the pandemic. So that's how you can see that obviously spike in the early to mid 50% for those kind of 2020 into the early 2021.
Yeah,
so
you can see that quite clearly. Yeah.
Yes. However, on the back of that, you can then see as you move into 2022 and beyond, this trend starts to go into reverse. We start backpedaling and go into reverse.
Yeah.
And the proportion of homes sold as a percentage, obviously, of the homes for sale in Fife started to decline. And now it's roughly sitting about the 30%, which again, you can see by the graph. So Richard, what does that mean for Fife home movers?
Yeah, so I think obviously going through all those stats and look at those numbers, the question is, well, what does that mean for us in Fife and as homeowners and things? And the stable number of home sales against a backdrop of increasing supply could signal a potential issue. And the market may be approaching maybe a tipping point where supply begins to outstrip demand. I mean, it's all about supply and demand in the property market. And this is where we're maybe approaching this point where the supply is beginning to possibly outstrip that demand. So given these trends that we've just went through, it's clear that the Fife homeowners looking to sell their property need to be really mindful of these market dynamics, or have somebody advising them of these market dynamics so that they know where they stand within the market. With the number of homes for sale having increased since the mid-2022 period, competition amongst sellers is fiercer than it's been in recent years. I'm sure you'll pay testament to that, Sophie. While buyer demand remains really strong, it has not increased at the same rate as the supply of Fife homes on the market, which could lead to a longer time on the market and potentially a downward pressure on prices. This is where you need to start being realistic about your price point. Because in such a market, pricing becomes really crucial. And Fife homeowners who are really serious about selling need to ensure their properties are competitively priced. And as I said earlier on, right from the outset, to attract the right buyers. What about, like, obviously you gave us quite a good example of it, obviously if you need to revisit your price and a price realignment as opposed to price reduction and things like so. Price realignment is, and that was quite a good example that you used at the beginning there. What about the pitfalls and things what about overpricing a property?
Oh, it can be absolutely detrimental because you go and overvalue that, but then okay, so we go and do that. One, it's either then not going to be realistic and your home report's going to come in at a lot less, and then even from the offset, you've got obviously a client where their expectations up here, but obviously market values down here. But then okay, actually our valuation in the home report lines up, but it's obviously not priced correctly. It then goes to market as well. And then it's obviously nobody, then you're not going to get the interest in the property. You're just not, if it's priced too highly, when there is, as you say, quite a lot of supply, We need to be competitively priced to stand out and actually get those buyers through the door to then at least be able to negotiate, because that's the bit that we need to get to. We need to get to the negotiation stage to then be able to get you that best price.
To secure things,
If nobody's coming through the door, if you're not attractive and competitive from the offset, you're not going to get anybody through the door to then be able to negotiate and actually see, okay, is it priced accordingly? Because another thing that we do is get that price feedback from viewers as well. To then, okay, what are active buyers on the market telling us? What is their price feedback? Because they're also the ones going through other properties and viewing other ones. But if we can't even get them through the door to get that viewing, to get that price feedback, because we've got it priced too highly, then we're kind of sitting at a stalemate, and it's no use to anybody.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think really, if you're overpricing in a market that, as you say, is already abundant with choices, it could really result in your property kind of languishing like unsold for like extended periods of time on the market, which nobody wants. I think if you look at it on the other hand, if you set a realistic and attractive price point, it could make all the difference in securing that swift sale. Like as you say, you get to that negotiation stage and could close the deal on behalf of your client, and everyone's happy, buyer, seller. But if you're overpricing for the outset, you're setting it's a setup to fail, because it's you're completely offering the wrong fruit. So yeah, realistic and attractive price points from the outset. What kind of things should we remember?
Remember that the longer a home takes to sell, not only is it not maybe going to work with your time scale and what your plans look like within your property journey and for moving forward, but there is also, and maybe people might not even be aware of this or even factor this into the equation, that the greater the chance the sale will actually fall through, even though the sale is agreed upon. Because don't forget, just because you've accepted the offer, there is still obviously that chance until those missives are signed on the dotted line, that buyer can walk away and pull out. So the longer that it's sitting on the market, almost sitting stale and sticking, just because then you get that buyer that you accept the offer from, there is that increased risk that it could obviously fall through. And that is backed up with looking at an examination. Of course, we always back up what we say with stats and figures. Yes. So it's done by an examination from Denton House Research using data from 20 EA. They noted that in the UK, homes sold within the first 25 days of going to market and going live, the homeowners had a 94% chance of getting the sale through to completion. And when we say completion, missive signs,
done, dusted and moving.
Yes, moved. With then only a 6% chance of the sale falling through. However, and this is where we're obviously saying we're backing it up, if the sale is agreed in more than 100 days, the chances of actually completing that sale and moving reduces vastly by, would you believe it, 56%, with a 44% chance of the sale falling through, which is obviously no use to anybody at all.
What that says to me is, the longer you're on the market, the less likely if you do get a sale, is for it to transpire right through to, like you say, completion and moving. So getting things right in the beginning is the key here. Absolutely. Get your price point right, get your market and your digital marketing strategy right. Do you know, have your ducks in a row, have your solicitor ready. Do you know, have all these things so you are good to go, and your property is pitched and looking the best it can and priced appropriately for the market, because you want to try and attract a buyer as soon as you can, because the longer you wait on the market, the less likely it is to be able, even if you get a sale, there's those higher percentages that it might not transpire or follow through.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, in conclusion, while the Fife property market remains active, available homes has increased, so the supply has increased since mid-2022. This has been a new challenge for sellers, because obviously there is that supply there, and we need that demand to match. To achieve a successful sale, Fife homeowners must pay close attention to the market trends and also their pricing accordingly, which obviously we've discussed throughout. Realistic pricing and an understanding of the broader market dynamics, and that's why we also discuss micro regions when we're on our shows. And micro regions, for those that don't know, is your St Andrews, your Glenrothes, your Kirkcaldy, because each one is slightly different. So it's also understanding that and knowing that your agent understands that as well, because it is vital in the obviously broader market dynamics.
So
and the data suggests that.
So and you're right. The data does suggest that, well, obviously the market is still healthy, but the balance between supply and demand is shifting, and as it always does throughout the years in the market. So we're at that point where supply and demand is shifting, and it's making strategic pricing more crucial than ever. So it will pay dividends to have a knowledgeable agent in front of you, giving you the right information and pricing your property accordingly right at the beginning.
We had a client recently who was wanting to do a price realignment, but they were wanting to take it from,
if you're going to take anything away from
I think I've lost you, Richard.
Sorry, did you lose me there?
A little bit, but we're back in the room.
So sorry. So the main thing, as I was saying, is have your agent at the beginning giving you the right advice and the right price point to get your property on the market, and getting the right attention from the outset. And that's really where I would wrap up today. I think, as you said, Sophie, and I would completely agree, our show we done last week on the roller coaster that we've been through in the last 6 years, from 2019 through to just now. We went a wee bit deeper into like how the effects of the trust budget and the pandemic and interest rates and everything as well ties in really nicely with what we spoke about today. So if you didn't have time, guys, catch that show that we did last Thursday, and you'll get it on our YouTube channel or any of our social media channels. And of course, anything that we've covered today in terms of the stats or marketing strategy or price point or price realignment, if you would like any information on that, feel free to contact either Sophie or I. You could get us directly, or you could jump in the comments here and we will be able to pick them up. So thanks very much for joining me, Sophie. And as always, thanks for your insightful information. And those graphs were really good at depicting that trend those years. So they were really good. So I'll leave it there today, guys. Thanks for everyone that's joining us. And thanks again, Sophie. We'll see you next time.
Have a good week.
You too. Thanks. Bye.